Linjani, Makadi. Hello. Today is Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2021. And today's watch list cadre is the current Vice-President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Constantine Guveya Dominic Nyikadzino, the brooding warrior tactician. Quiet, stealthy, but always steadfast in his results. Constantino Guveya Dominic Nyikadzino was born on the 25th of August 1956. He is a politician. He's now a politician, former army general, and as we said before, he's currently the first Vice-President of Zimbabwe ever since 2017. He is the first Vice-President under President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who we will be doing another watch list cadre coming to you soon. Also, since we're in a COVID situation, we should mention that August 2020 he was added to his portfolio, the health ministry, which he falls under him. We need to credit him as well for a lot of the developments that happened during COVID lockdown, and the reason why Zimbabwe right now is being given all these accolades should be accredited as a lot to when he took over the ministry. So, since 2017, he's been the vice president, and he got elected in after 2018. Of course, we know how that came about. It was after President Mugabe resigned after 37 years in power. Comrade Chiwenga, as we said, was born in 1956. He's from Wedza, which is a district in Mashonaland East. He was educated up to O-level, St. Mary's Mission in Wedza. So who is he? He is a war vet, first and foremost. We need to start with that. He's a war vet, and then we'll go deeper into that after we get that. He is some of the people he went with to school are Liberation Hero Parents Shiri, Shungirirai, who's also a brigadier general, and so forth. Chiwenga is very educated too. He has a PhD in ethics from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. As well as that, we want to repeat again, he is a war vet. Socially speaking, he's been married in and out. His social life always seems to have been a problem. He's been, I think he's been married or divorced several times. I'm not really sure. But currently he has issues with the current wife he has. I think they're actually right now, who's Mary Mubaiwa. Yes, Mary Mubaiwa. They're still married, but they're actually going through a divorce right now as we speak. He has been suffering a lot from an ailment which we do not know what it is. This started affecting him after the Bulawayo bombing that happened. That's another issue that has just kept being, up until now, they haven't caught the perpetrators for that bombing or attempted assassination of the executive. So ever since then, he's had problems. Both him and his wife have had problems which he has been dealing with for the past few years. He joined the liberation struggle. Now, let's go back to what we want to talk about. As a war vet, he joined the liberation struggle in 1973. He is from the Zandla side of Zimbabwe. The heroes. What is the Zandla side? To those who are not aware of how Zimbabwe is, there are two sides of heroes we have in Zimbabwe. We have Zipra side and we have Zandla side, right? The Zipra is the Zapu side and the Zandla is the ZANU side, right? This is before they became all combined to ZANU-PF in 1987. Our Chiwenga, Comrade Chiwenga, is from the Zandla. He is a Zandla militant through and through. And he had a war name of Dominic during his time in 1973. So, joining in 1973, he was one of the, let's just say, the final batch of the young Turks. He was one of those young Turks during that time, 1973. This is where Hundo Yainyato Pisa, but whoever who's been following the Revolutionary Star knows that this has been an ongoing issue ever since 1965. Right? We just want to make sure you get that. He was stationed in Masvingo or Gaza province. He was deputized by George Chiwenga, who is currently a judge right now. And we will talk about Comrade George Chiwenga. We like him as well. Another one of those quiet people who is been misunderstood. Watch out for Comrade Chiwenga when we do his watch list. So Comrade George Chiwenga was the provincial commissar. He was, Chiwenga was then promoted to high command in 1978. And then he deputized Josiah Tungamirai, who is another watch list cadre we will be discussing as well. He became a political commissar, but he deputized Josiah Tungamirai. After the war, he joined the National Army as a brigadier. Yeah, he was in Bulawayo. That's where he was a brigadier. Then he was later promoted to the rank of a major general, which this was around the time he reverted back to his name of Constantine Guveya. So this is who we have as Chiwenga. He's always been misunderstood, very misunderstood individual, and some of the things that is said about Comrade Chiwenga is maybe misconstrued, because let's not forget that most of our war veterans have a dark side. If you have relatives who are war veterans, you will understand what I'm saying. It may be PTSD or whatever it is, and only those who have relatives who are war veterans understand this. War veterans or war collaborators, that they have a dark side or a brooding side. And at times they have a 0 to 60 threshold, whereby it can be nice in 1 minute and violent in another minute. Some have reverted to drinking a lot. Some were saved by church. Some married women who managed to calm them down, but they all have demons, whether it's female or male. They all have demons. These things are misunderstood a lot by our society, not only in Zimbabwe, but if we look at the United States with their own war veterans, they also have a difficult time. They have a ministry and resources, rehabilitation centers and programs dedicated to that. Unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, we never had that. So we lost a lot of our war veterans due to the fact that these were things we didn't understand. So some of the things that happened in the past for Comrade Chiwenga, and not only Comrade Chiwenga, a lot of the myths, the folk, the things that they don't write about in the media, of the social stories about how these madalas would frequent and socialize with people or deal with instant justice with people, is misunderstood from that narrative of the transition that they had to go from being in the bush to actually being able to socialize on a civilian level with people. So Chiwenga is one of those individuals. We all know some of his stories when he was at the Zimbabwe Staff College. Of course, he had been expelled at the time. It's alleged he was expelled. He was also known as a hard ass at times, quick to temper. Again, this is very common with war veterans. Very quick to temper. And violence is never a problem. Right? Very quiet people who analyze you before they give you an answer. It's more of a paranoia thing, I think, based from when they were in the bush. Right? Not only did they have to worry about the Zulu scouts and the Rhodesian forces, but sellouts from amongst their own people when they came into a village and so forth. So it's, as a person who never picked up a gun and fought in the war, I, as a comrade, cannot understand what may be going through them. But as having relatives who fought in the war and see how they deal with us as individuals and some of the emotional problems we've had to have to understand our relatives or our close relatives, I get where this is coming from. But if you never had war veterans in your family, it doesn't necessarily have to be a liberation vet. If you have a relative who fought in the Congo War in Zimbabwe or in Mozambique, you will understand what I'm telling you, because it's a dark side and only you who's close to them can understand that. So this is Chiwenga, who's one of those people. On the formation of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces in 1994, he was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General, and then he was appointed commander of the Zimbabwe National Army upon the retirement of General Vitalis Zinavashi in 2004. Zinavashi is one of those guys we also want to talk about. That was the brigade or the platoon that stayed behind when everybody went back into Zimbabwe after independence, just in case ZANU got double crossed. So we want to talk about Comrade Jinavashe in our later episodes. It's another cadre who is also misunderstood. Now, Comrade Chiwenga has been chairman of the Joint Operation, was the chairman of the Joint Operations Command, which comprised ZNA, Prison Services, Central Intelligence Organization, ZRP, Air Force of Zimbabwe. I'm presuming right now it's Valerio Sibanda. I am not 100% sure. We should have researched that before the podcast, but I'm pretty sure it should be Valerio Sibanda, who's currently the chairman of the Joint Operations Command, JOC currently. Another organization we want to have a Sunday edition specifically on, based on what Jonathan Moyo said about JOC. Is it true? So watch out for that one. It's coming to your podcast on Sunday soon. So this is a cadre through and through. He participated actively during the war. He was one of those people who were under the command of another hero, which is Mujuru, who we will talk about as well in another watch list as well. This is who he is. Currently is the vice president, very misunderstood, just like Emmerson Mnangagwa, who we will do a watch list as well, as we said before. Now, what we want to know that is really important about, now that we've gone through all the cliff notes on who he is and so forth, this man, if you want to know Chiwenga, is very, what is the right word? Very, very revolutionary. He's dogged. Once he decides on something, he decides on something. But they are these were people who actually fought the war. They were not intelligentsia. They were not the nationalist side of the party. The nationalist side is the people who would go get the funding. If you're looking at nationalists within the movement, you're looking at the Steve Mbakos, for example, if not Mbako, maybe the Webster Shamus and so forth. They helped do the organizational framework, the fundraising, the diplomatic side of the war. Chiwenga wasn't that. Chiwenga was a warrior. These were people who were on the ground. They actually fought, they picked up a gun, they fought. If you tell him about certain people who were warriors within the war, no matter even if they were not in the Gaza province, he would know them, because he was actually one of those guys. And he was in the command. When we say command, we're not talking about command, Garapa table, giving orders from Zambia. These were guys who were on the ground actually doing operations and missions on the ground, creating operating bases within Zimbabwe and having different types of groups and guerrilla movements moving without Zimbabwe. This guy knows war. So first and foremost, before he got all this education which you mentioned before, he is a warrior. So his thought process and the way he thinks, you should take that into consideration, that it is very warrior-like, right? There is usually no gray area. It's black or white. Usually with warriors, it's black or white. Gray area is dangerous for a warrior. If you know anything about warriors, or if you've read the Machiavelli or the Art of War, Sun Tzu, gray area is dangerous. And it should be used very sparingly, and you should know how to use it. A gray area for a warrior is spies. That's the gray area. And you go to school, you have to be taught how to use spies when you're in the war, because spies can still double cross you. That's how much you can't trust spies. They may be your spy, but it's still a spy, right? It's an emotional thing. It's an art. But that is as much gray as it gets when it comes to anything to do with war, right? It's not intellectual. Sooner or later, you have to kill somebody. So these people have killed people. So again, it goes back to that dark side we mentioned before, right? And again, as we mentioned in our previous podcast, the liberation struggle had two sides to the coin. There was a nationalist cadre, then there was the warrior cadre. These were two. Tongogara could be considered a hybrid of the two. At first he was on the ground, and then he moved back into the theoretical armchair general. It is what it is, comrades. Let's not lie about that, right? But he was a hybrid of the two. The Chiwengas were on the ground. These were soldiers, through and through. So they are known amongst the soldiers as well. Or another hybrid could be Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa was in a hybrid as well. At his earlier time, he was on the ground, the blowing up and the bombing and so forth. But then he elevated from there to becoming an attaché, an aide-de-camp to Mugabe. That's another hybrid we can give as an example. Who's got the best of both worlds. Now, how does this affect the way you view Chiwenga? When you see a comrade Chiwenga, sometimes in the decisions they make, people misunderstand him. We'll give you an example of the doctors when they were against the way they were treated by comrade Chiwenga, and then the now popularized the word skilled laborer. That's that black and white we are talking about, comrade, when we are talking about this man. If it doesn't make sense and it's not practical and it gets the shit done, if shit doesn't get done, then it doesn't make sense to him. He doesn't want to hear theory. These are the madaras who don't want theories. Yes, we're going to but does this get shit done? If it doesn't get shit done, that is a Chiwenga type of person. A lot of soldiers are like that because things need to get done. It has to be practical. If it's not practical, it doesn't make sense. You're wasting my time in the upper side. So that hustler mentality that is here in Zimbabwe that we now have had, and the pseudo degreed level of thinking that our Zimbabwe psyche now has, whereby we are churning out degrees upon degrees, but they are not practical enough, does not apply to a person such as a Chiwenga. Which is why you see him lean a lot more on the army rather than civilians, because in the army they still have that practicality component within them. They still stress test you within the army, right? And that's why you see him lean on that. If you saw the way he dealt with the health crisis during COVID and how he leaned on the army doctors and so forth, yeah, that is who Chiwenga is, right? Going also deeper into who Chiwenga is when it comes to that is being from a practicality level of thinking makes him at times not attuned to no things to do, which explains how he ended up issuing the order to have soldiers on the ground, which was Anselm Sanyetwe's battalion, right? That is a political misstep that he made. But again, it's a black and white guy. Let's get the job done. Right, there are riots that are going on in Zimbabwe from elections and so forth. Bring the soldiers out there, and the soldiers were overzealous. Remember, a soldier is trained to kill, not to police and dampen an uprising. When a soldier is deployed, it's just one thing: kill or eradicate the threat. So that was a political misstep. From a practical level, he got the job done. They shut off the internet. They clamped down on all the areas that had riots and demonstrations, but some people died, according to the commission, and his soldiers were found to blame. And there were a lot of missteps that happened along the way. That was because he was not politically astute. That is, let's call it as it is. And he only really became a politician after 2017. That's the first time the world really got to know who Comrade Chiwenga was. Before that, he had always been in the background. It was always just tactical or military issues that were happening. You never really got to know who this man was. Yeah, and within ZANU-PF, he had always been known. Right? Especially war veterans. War veterans are all known because of they're a dwindling group of people. So these days, if you are a ZANU-PF cadre, even if you are a youth, you should at least know who these people are. If you don't, comrade, please Google or listen to our podcast, because we will be this is what the watch list is all about. So again, this is a man who's been growing into politician. He only started wearing suits recently. From 2017 is where he wore suits. He's still trying to shed his military stance, his military point of view, his perspective. But once a soldier, always a soldier, comrade. So you need to understand that when you listen to the way this man speaks at times, that black and white way of seeing the world, is who he is, which is why most of the time, whoever his advisors are have told him to keep quiet. He now has become more accustomed to reading from a teleprompter or from words that have been typed out for him. That's a new development, right? And he's still adjusting to it, which is how that skilled labor thing came out. And why, while we are on that, on a side note, comrades, why are Zimbabweans so insecure about their accent? That is very weird, comrade. How is it that the skilled labor thing has now become an in thing where you're laughing at a person because his English has got an African accent? That is as colonized as it gets, comrade. Yeah, the revolutionaries that we condone that. I would rather speak in English than in English. It is very colonized way of thinking. And if you've listened to our past podcasts when we were explaining on how our Shona language was bastardized by English missionaries, you understand why we take it personally that you would laugh at a man who's actually proud of showing his Wedza accent. But anyway, back to what we're saying. This political astuteness of Comrade Chiwenga has not yet matured. These days he's more quiet. He's being given scripted speeches. Why is this? It's because the backlash he suffered from missteps he made in the past, politically. If you're looking at it from an operational point of view, he's been just hitting things in stride. Before COVID, he was the one who ended up dealing with NatFarm. Before NatFarm, there was another issue that he ended up stepping in. He helped Parents Shiri when it came to the farming issues with the command agriculture that President Mnangagwa was pushing. He's been there as well. Within the metropolitan areas, right now the demolitions and trying to get metropolitan areas back to at least some type of service delivery point of view. He's also in that committee. So if we're looking at it from an operational point of view, he's doing what soldiers do all the time: get shit done. Right? That's what soldiers do. They get shit done. Right? If they don't, they will face punishment or whatever. It's a rigid structure. You do not question the general, you just follow instructions. So he gets shit done. However, that world does not apply to politics. And I think somebody is now finally told him, no, Mdara, you can't say this all the time, which is why you've noticed he's quiet. He's been a lot more quiet than where he was before. Of course, President Mnangagwa has always been quiet. That doesn't change. So that suits both their temperaments when it comes to this quietness. And expect that from, I believe for the next few years to come, that's how politics from ZANU-PF is going to be like. These men have already set the stage whereby politics is not talk, it's action. If I've got something against you, I'll go against you quietly. So that's how politics is going to be run. And if you've seen the way ZANU-PF has been doing its things lately, it's no longer that back and forth that you used to have. And if they do back and forth, they find some savvy young Turk within the structures to just parrot off some words and stuff. But these men right now in our leadership structures do not care about getting catchphrases or sound bites that sound good in the media. The AC Lumumbas and so forth that are good at that type of stuff are only needed sparingly right now in this regime. They tried it at the beginning. They tried to gloss themselves up and it didn't work. So they've reverted back to what they know. Let's get shit done. While we're getting shit done, we're going to make sure that we clamp down and we just get Zimbabwe on point. This is the Chiwenga who we're talking about. So next time when you're listening or we discuss about Chiwenga, just revert back to the watch list. Again, he's a war veteran, but a war veteran who was an actual soldier. As we've said in our previous podcast, there are two types of heroes or liberation veterans. There are the nationalists. These were the theoreticians, the fundraisers, the doctors, the diplomats, the lawyers. That's the first group. The other side of the coin is the actual warrior. These are the Mujurus, the Zinavashis, the Chiwengas, the Shiris. These are the guys that the men knew on the ground. When they were fighting, they would fight together. If they were smoking, they would smoke together. The villagers know these men. You have war collaborators who actually met with them, cooked sadza for these men when they would come into their areas. This is the other side of the thing. These are both sides of the liberation struggle, but mafungiro avo akasiyana. If you do not understand this as a young cadre coming into the Revolutionary Party, then you will not understand these men. The other side that we're talking about, the Chiwenga side, these are black and white individuals. And death to them is nothing. They've faced death several times over and above. But their principle means everything. They've lost brothers and sisters. So to them, the principle is more important than what you are going to tell me. Your words are just words on a piece of paper. But I want to see action with my eyes. If my eyes see action, then I know that what you're telling me is the truth. Anything else is BS. That is the Chiwenga side. If you understand that, then you understand who he is right now as a vice president. You also understand the transition process that he's been going ever since 2018 to now. He's developing into a politician. This man was never a politician, right? But he's developing into a politician. These were people who were always behind the scenes, power brokers, but are now coming into the limelight. And you can see the issues that he's had to deal with throughout ever since 2018 that have been well documented within the news. Even the way he had to deal with his wife, it became a spectacle. And before that, issues of him and himself and Tagwire, who is another individual we will discuss, will also bring, everything has now come to light because he's forming himself into a politician. So he's now seeming to understand this and is adjusting. I believe this happened after when he ordered the soldiers onto the streets to quell the riots that happened. This is when you started seeing him pull back and analyze what it means from public gaze, from not only in Zimbabwe but outside Zimbabwe, right? I think a lot of times people who are coming into politics forget about the global effect of what they do domestically. But this is Comrade Chiwenga, one of our watch list cadres. Of course, we didn't mention the 2017 firing of President Mugabe because we want to go deeper into that. All we can say from that period of time for this cadre is that he played a very pivotal role in President Robert Mugabe stepping down as president. Some people would say that he did that because he did not want to relinquish his position as a general. Other people would say he did that because he was afraid of where the party and the revolutionary struggle was going with Grace Mugabe. We will leave that for you guys to decide. However, what we do know is that he did play a pivotal role. And one thing we can say about the way he did that, he only used, if we're not mistaken, 2 battalions to take over Harare and the specific choke points within Zimbabwe. Why do you want to mention this? At the beginning of this watch list, we said the brooding tactician. Quiet, brooding tactician. This man is a strategist. Underestimate him at your own peril. Let me repeat this again. This man is a strategist, cadres. This goes back to opposition leaders who may be listening to this podcast. This man is a strategist and a tactician, right? If you saw the way that the coup, not coup, whatever you want to call it, happened in 2017, it happened as a bloodless coup. This will be taught throughout other areas. They managed to get away with something that would have got them public condemnation throughout the world because coups are no longer allowed in the world. But for some reason, Zimbabwe got away with it, right? And the manner in which he did it, for a country that is said to be as militarized as it was, this man got away with doing it with 2 battalions. At the time, President Mnangagwa was outside the country. 2 battalions, right? The manner in which this man strategized, got the armories under control, and at the same time was strategic in the people he targeted. I was here when this happened. No civilians were involved at all. This was a very targeted attack. Very targeted initiative that was done. All the buildings where you'd find the armors, everything was done. One thing that shows us is that not only the planning that involved this, but the implementation and the amount of time it took for it to get done before he actually came out on TV. And even after everything had been done, he only came out on TV when President Robert Mugabe came out on TV. Before that, it was Subusise Moyo who was on TV, and so many other individuals. Listen again to when we say tactician, comrades. Right? This is again a shout out to them. This man, alongside with his crew, managed to stage a bloodless event and managed to get opposition leaders to support them. You can't call somebody like that stupid. First and foremost, he's a leader. Second, he showed organizational skill because he knows how to pick his team. So when you see a person like that, don't look at him as an individual. Look at him as a team. Right? Before he even did this whole coup, the way he flew out President Mnangagwa when he had been poisoned with ice cream. That also goes to show that Mnangagwa, you can't call Mnangagwa an idiot as well. A man is not made by himself. It's made by the people he picks around himself to make his organization effective in implementing policies, agendas, goals. They are the goal. Mugabe's time has come. We must make sure that Grace Mugabe doesn't come into position. And they operated it and got it done. How the hell was ZLP caught slipping? Support unit. Amaris were all taken at that time, bloodlessly. Very few people disappeared. Up until now, we're looking for some of the people who disappeared, but most of them seem to have been in the intelligence services. Right? MID, for the first time, we actually knew what MID was. MID for years has always been a quiet intelligence department that really doesn't get known. That's for the first time in 2017, we realized that MID is everywhere. And there are probably people you've been drinking with for years and you didn't know. Right? This means these guys are an intelligence gathering organization that actually gets shit done. Right? There's a hierarchy, there's a structure, there's an implementation, there's operations, everything is there. So if you are a person who's going to laugh at him when he calls skilled laborer, then something wrong with you. That's all we can say about this cadre. Tactician, strategist. It's better if he talks, because at least you get to know what he may be or may not be thinking. These men right now we have in our country who are leading us, when they are quiet is when they are more dangerous. It's better they talk. So again, comrade, this is Comrade Super Cabral. Our watch list today had been Comrade Chiwenga, brooding tactician, strategist. We talk about him specifically because we want you to make sure that you understand that a leader is only good as the men around him. If this is who he is, look at the people around him, because they will most likely have the same attributes that he has. That's when you start understanding the organization and the way that Zimbabwe is going to be moving forward. It's a no-nonsense organization. And if you are a person who is all glitz and glamour and you're trying to floss for the camera, you won't last long. It's a revolutionary time here. The revolution will not be televised this time. This has been Comrade Super Cabral, Linjani, Makadi. Hello. Roger out.